Q Talks with Liz Bailey. Our access to audio programmes are sponsored by Impact Funding Partners, the R.S. McDonald Charitable Trust and the Suter Charitable Trust. To find out more about how to access our services, visit CueAndReview.com or email aaatl@CueAndReview.com. This programme was produced and presented by our Access to Audio Ambassador team leader, Liz Bailey, and edited by our Recruitment Training Officer, Alistair McPhee.
Well, hi, today on Q Talks I'm being joined by Paul Coia. Hi Paul, how are you doing today?
Great, thanks Liz, how are you?
I'm good, yeah, not doing too badly. So you've been a friend of CueAndReview for quite a long time, going way back to when they started, I think. Can you tell me how you first got involved in CueAndReview?
Sure, I was working on a TV show called Pebble Mill at 1, and Princess Anne used to watch the show and she asked to get involved, and she came up with these awards. Now, I can't remember how long it had been going before I joined the show, but shortly after I joined the show, it was the annual come around of the Princess Anne Awards. And one of the shortlisted projects was CueAndReview, and the people who were running it at the time were either just leaving school or had just left. I can't quite remember. So I got to know Alistair, who started CueAndReview there and then, and subsequently Alistair asked me if I would get involved with the charity and become a patron and various things like that. So that's how it started.
Yeah, so, and that was that like sort of late 80s? Because I believe Alistair started it when he was still in school, so it must have been just late 80s, early 90s then.
I've no idea. I couldn't give you a date. I joined Pebble Mill at 1 in 1983. Right. So, and I stayed for 3 years. So between 83 and 86. I
remember Pebble Mill, actually. I used to get to watch it when I was off school, when I was sick. I remember you used to watch it with my grandparents. So yeah, I do actually remember
it. Me too. You know, whenever I think of Pebble Mill, or used to think of Pebble Mill at 1, I always used to think I was sick, which is not the best image you want to have in your head. No. But then once I started on the program, obviously it was just a dream come true. But you're right. When we were at school, that's the only time we saw it, was when we were off sick.
Yeah. So you've had, did you work in hospital radio for a while as well? Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, this was before I got into telly. I was working at a hotel to try and supplement my student grant. And through that, I got into working with the disco people who did the Sunday night disco there. From that, I decided I would send a demo tape to Radio Clyde. And the guy at Radio Clyde saw me and he said, "You're not very good, but tell you what, go away for 6 months and do hospital radio, learn the difference between radio and shouting out in a nightclub." And I thought, oh, okay. So I went off and did that. And I was very lucky that I was with Hospital Broadcasting Service in Glasgow for quite a while. I did 6 months and then I got into Radio Clyde, but I carried on at HBS for a while after that.
Right, okay. I actually did hospital radio for a while, Radio Lollipop at York Hill. I was doing that for a while, and I got involved in radio in Clydebank and RNIB radio, and now I'm back at CueAndReview, so I came full circle. So tell us about volunteering with CueAndReview during lockdown. I understand we did ask you to help us out a little bit, so what made you decide to do that?
Well, I just wondered whether CueAndReview would be having problems getting hold of people who had the systems in place to actually record and send the newspaper articles each day. So I just got in touch and said, look, if there's anything I can do to help, let me know. Because at that time, we were all in lockdown. You know, you were allowed to go for a little walk each day, but other than that, you're in the house. And I'm lucky enough that I've got a studio in the house. And at the time, I was recording an audiobook, which took me about 2 months because it was 450 pages. And I therefore had to be in the studio every day anyway. And so I thought, well, if it means tacking on extra time to record some items for CueAndReview, then I'll happily offer it. And they said, yes, please, let's do it. And here we are 27 years later, it seems, and we're still doing it.
Yeah, well, it's fantastic. I mean, we've really appreciated your help during lockdown. We've had a few volunteers have been able to help us out from home. So that's how we've been able to keep going. I don't know if you're aware, but there are 2 million visually impaired people in the UK alone. That's registered people. So we estimate that actually the number's probably a lot higher because a lot of people don't actually register. So that's who you've been helping out. So thank you very much for that.
Delighted.
Well, we've been delighted to have you. So tell me, do you have any plans for the future now that lockdown's starting to ease a little bit? What things are coming up for you?
Well, the way I earn most of my living now, I still do radio and telly and a bit of writing, but where the bulk of my income comes from is corporate work. I coach executives of large companies, from chief executive officer through the whole of the executive committee. I coach them for standing up in public and speaking, or attending conferences, speaking on the stage, or announcing their end of year results. What questions are the journalists going to ask them? What questions are the analysts going to ask them? How are they going to reply? And all that went completely and utterly disappeared. So here we are coming out the other side, we hope. And various things have started coming through. The first two things that came through were coaching a chocolate company in Switzerland for 2 days, in Zurich, and then going just about an hour out of Zurich to coach an engineering company for a couple of days. So we get all that in the book, and that's all fine and hunky-dory, brilliant, great, we'll get back to normal. And then the government announced that there are quarantine restrictions. So if I go to Switzerland, when I come back, I've got to quarantine for 2 weeks and therefore can't do any other work. So we'll need to wait and see what happens. Mm-hmm. So do I have plans for the future? Loads of them. Am I certain they're going to come off? Not in your Nelly.
Oh, well, you just have to wait and see. You can continue volunteering for CueAndReview, because we do really appreciate your help. So you've always got that to keep you occupied.
It's such a pleasure.
Well, thank you very much for joining me today. That was a great talk. Thank you very much. And thanks for everything you've been doing for CueAndReview.
Cheers, Liz.
Thank you. Talks with Liz Bailey. Our access to audio programmes are sponsored by Impact Funding Partners, the R.S. McDonald Charitable Trust and the Suter Charitable Trust. To find out more about how to access our services, visit CueAndReview.com or email aaatl@CueAndReview.com. This programme was produced and presented by our Access to Audio Ambassador team leader, Liz Bailey, and edited by our Recruitment Training Officer, Alistair McPhee.